Welcome and good morning. This is the next session in our Church 360 Unite series of webinars. Today we're discussing users, groups, and communication. Let me introduce myself. My name is Tim Burke. I'm a software support technician here at Concordia Technology Solutions. I've been here about 5 years. My contact information is displayed there on your screen, my email address, as well as my direct phone number. A couple things to note: all microphones and phones have been muted so we can get through the presentation without any distractions. But I am very interested in knowing and taking any of your questions, so please type any questions into the questions window, and if Rod doesn't answer them, our support staff today, during the webinar, then I'll also be covering them during the Q&A session at the end. Speaking of the questions window, I did just want to once again present the little control panel that you should see on your side. The image on the left shows a red arrow pointing to the questions section that you can click on to expand that section, and then the image on the right shows the questions window expanded. I've highlighted the area where you would type in your question, and then there's a send button underneath that you click, and that will then submit it into us as your instructor and support staff today. All right, as support staff, we do have our manager, Rod Kiles, here at Concordia Technology Solutions. He's the manager of the support department. His contact information is displayed there on your screen, his email address, as well as his direct phone number. Let's go ahead and briefly talk about the class agenda today. First of all, we're looking at an overview of the topics that we'll cover. Then we'll go into the actual discussion for around 45 minutes. Then we'll take a short intermission, a break, take 5 minutes to stretch, get a drink of water. Then we'll come back, go into more discussion, follow that up with a short 5-question quiz, and then drop into our Q&A session there at the end. So let's go ahead and talk about the overview of our topics. We'll be covering users today, how to give members of your church access to your church's website, as well as any other administrative staff there at your church who are going to possibly help you manage the website. We'll talk about the member directory. That's a directory that then signed in members can access and be able to see the other members of the church and phone numbers, as well as their address and email address. We'll talk about groups pages, ways of taking specific areas of ministries at your church and giving them their own, in a way, their own little micro website on your church's website. We'll talk about calendars that then is public facing on the website, and we'll look at creating some events for those calendars. And then we'll talk about communication, emailing members of your church, as well as the newer texting option that's been added to Church 360 Unite. Let's go ahead then and get started. We'll start here from the home page of our Faith Community Church, our virtual church that we've been using during this webinar series. And let me first sign in to the website. Well, let's see. I actually have another window with that open here. So let me close that. Get back to the home screen. There we go. So there's our Faith Community Church website, the home page of the website, and the carousel of slideshow that's appearing here at the top. On the navigation bar at the very top, since I've been signed in as a user, I'm going to the users option here on the navigation bar. We're waiting for the users to load. Let's go ahead and refresh the page. All right, there we go. So this is our user section. I'm going to just point out some important areas of the window here that's presented. We've got the users on the left side navigation bar presented right now. We'll talk about mailing lists and communication near the end of the webinar. But here would be your list of users, your list of members in your church. Right now, this is a new website that we're using for the webinar, so there's not a whole lot of members listed and shown here on the screen. But let me jump over to my other tab here in my browser, and I've got another demo account which will give you a better idea of what a list of users might look like. This would be a list of users that is connected with the Church 360 members product, so it's showing a long list of people in the virtual church that we have. So this is what your users list would most likely look like once you've got people added to the screen with varying access depending on if it's church staff or church members. Let me go ahead and jump back to our webinar website. And so here at the top of the screen, we've got a filter by name box where we can find someone from the list once you have a long scrollable list going, and you can quickly get to their name if you needed to make a change, whether they're listed or unlisted in the member directory. So for example, if I chose my name here, I could change my role from a designer at the moment to just a standard user. I'll update that. And you can see now that the role of the person has been changed. We also have the ability to check the name and list them or unlist them in the member directory that appears on your church website. So right now I do have a green check mark under the listed. If I click unlist, then it would just put a little gray X here and unlist that person, and they would no longer appear in the church or the member directory online. I'm going to go ahead and keep myself listed so I do appear in the online directory. Another action button is to invite either a single person or a group of people, invite them to receive texts, and we'll cover that a little later, as well as being able to delete a person. Here on the far right in the lower right corner is a way to add people. So we can click that button. We can go ahead and add Rod in here. Click the add button, and while I'm here, I do want to point out that you are able to also download a CSV template so that you can add a group of people all in a single move in a way. Let's go ahead and click on this link real quick here. And then what this does when you download the CSV template is it basically gives you an Excel spreadsheet with 3 columns. So those same columns that I had in adding just a user on screen gives you the first name, the last name, and the email. And so I could just go ahead and do the same thing I did on screen. And I could also add other So I could keep on going down a list, and I could have 20, 50 people in this spreadsheet. I could go ahead and save it. I could then import my spreadsheet. And it will import that list of names that you have. My spreadsheet only had 2 people, but the list could be lengthier. Then you click add, and it then adds this to your users list. When you first add someone manually to the list, you'll see that their email address appears here in a shaded or light gray with parentheses around it. That means that they haven't completed their login yet. It also shows a role here of none, last sign in, which is blank, and they're currently unlisted. And so if we wanted to invite someone to be a member on the website, let's say Rod is a member of the church, what we would do is put a check mark in front of his name. We might want to say that he's listed in the member directory as well. We can then once again put the check mark there to do another action here at the bottom, change his role. And they initially start out as a none. They may not log in to Unite, so they would just have regular general public access to the website. But a step up from there is being a user, and this is what most of your church would have access to, is just a user. That would give them access to things like member-only pages on your website, those kind of pages that the general public can't see, but a member-only page, a person does need to be signed in, so that's what you would give to your church membership mainly. Then there's also a publisher, which may edit content on the website. There's a designer who can edit content as well as change the theme of the whole website. The theme applies the background and just the way that the website looks. And then there's the administrator access, which is they can manage the themes in all settings. They just have access to everything. So depending on the subscription that you have with Church 360 Unite, you may have one or two administrator accounts, or you may have the ability to add more administrators than just one or two, depending on your subscription level. But we'll go ahead and add Rod here as a user. We'll click Update. And you'll see now under Rod's name that his role has been changed from none to user, and that he was invited less than a minute ago. You'll also see that I had added myself about 23 minutes ago. I wanted to show you what that invite looks like. When you've changed the role of someone from none to user or some other level of access, what they'll receive is a email that looks like this. Now I use dark mode in my email, so that's why the whole background is a dark gray or black. So that may look a little different. Most of the time the background is just white, but this is the email that you receive. This is saying, Dear Tim, you have been invited to set up an account for the website of Faith Community Church. Accept the invitation. This is a button that your member would then click on. It then opens this page here, which they are able to confirm their first name and their last name as well as their email address. That could be changed if for some reason it was incorrect. Obviously the email would be correct because they were able to click on the link. You could they could give an optional username to sign in. I'll say Tim, that way they wouldn't necessarily have to use their email address when they're signing in to their to the website. And then they would type in their own password that they would like to have with password confirmation field. They click continue. And then now I've got access to the website as a user, and it shows that welcome Tim. And so this is the extent of what I see just as a standard user. There's currently just 3 tabs that are available to the standard member of the church, and that's all that they will see. So that's the process of inviting users. I'll go ahead and sign out. Let me go back to my other window here where we have Jordan signed in. Let's see. Let me go ahead and refresh this page just in case it knocked this out as well, which it did. So let me log in then again as Jordan. Now I logged in a little different way as a technician, but you should already know your login process from the previous webinar. All right, so we're once again signed in. Now as the administrator account, we'll go to users, and here's our list of users. So once I've completed my sign-in, then you'll see that in the column for last sign-in, it does show that I signed in about a minute ago. And Jordan, obviously, that I'm pretending to be today as the instructor, signed in 10 minutes ago. And then Rod here was invited 3 minutes ago. And let's say that a user on your church didn't get the original email or deleted it by accident. And so they call the church office and say, could you resend me that invitation? So the icon here that I'm pointing to right now in a user record of Rod Kyles is the resend option. So hovering over that and clicking on that would resend the invite to Rod. And so if your church member calls a month or two later, they didn't get it, just click on that icon and it will resend them that invitation to set up an account. And they would go through the same process I just showed you through the email that I had on the screen. All right, let's see. All of these here on every row, let's say you wanted to edit the name. There's a little pencil here in the record, and I could then edit a name. There's inline editing, and once I've changed that, I can just click the check mark, and it changes my name as well. I can once again change any of these roles. I could click on my name. I'm set up with a user. I could change my role. If I started to help the church out as maybe a publisher of one of the pages, and I could update that. That changes my role from none or from user to publisher. We showed you how to bring in a group of people. The action buttons, okay. And I do want to point out, please note this, that once a user's login is established, in other words, I've now established myself here as a user and I'm linked to this email address. If for some reason my email address changed and I wanted to use a Gmail or an SBC Global type of email, I would be the only one that could change that email address. The church staff could not change it, and that's for the purpose of signing in. Now, my email can be changed in the member directory by church staff, but the one here, the email that's connected to my sign-in, can only be changed by the user themselves. And so let me just maybe show that real quick. I'll log out, sign out as if I'm Jordan here. Again, I'm just going to be signing in as a technician here. All right, so now I'm signed in as myself. You can see in the upper right corner it says, welcome Tim, and there's this settings icon. So the member of your church who would want to change their email provider changed, they would click on this settings here, and then they have access to that email that's connected with their login, and they can change it here. They would then give the current password. They can set up a new password and confirm that new password and update their credentials. So if the church office ever gets a call like that, I want to change my login email, you would have to instruct them that they would need to do it through settings of their user account. All right, so let me go ahead and sign out. I'm going to sign in back as Jordan, the administrator, once again. Now let's talk about the members directory, because once you've given access to members and given them a login, we do want to talk about the member directory. In this particular church setup, it's under the Connect tab. So right here we've got the 4 individuals that are currently set up in this church. Here's my name, a couple of the other technicians here, and Rod. Let me give a little bit of a better presentation of this members directory to give you an idea. I'll go back to my other demo church, and under that Connect tab, here's a member directory of our fictitious members of that church, and you see a little better representation of what a member directory, online directory might look like. It's got the last name of the family here. In this case, it is just a demo family, 3 members to the household, their address and a phone number, and if there's an email address that was listed, but there's no email address in this case. Let's go ahead back to the top. Let's just use the Abbott family there at the top. We use them as demonstration purposes. So this member directory here, this is showing the household. If I click on the family name, it then shows the members, or this is like, in a way, the household record for that family. It shows the members who are in the family as well as their street address, their phone number, any email. If I needed to edit this household, I could then click Edit Household link. Gives me access to the family name, city, state, zip, whether they're going to be listed in the directory or not, the phone number of that household, and then the members of the family. These can be dragged and dropped into different positions, and it would, then you might want it either by age or just however or whatever kind of hierarchy that you want to use. Then any changes that you make, you would update the household and click that button, and that would update then the household. Let's go back just to the household view, and then we've got the individual members. If you wanted to access their record in the member directory, you can click on their name. Dave is the head of house, so now we're seeing Dave Abbott's personal record, and you would be able, well, first of all, you see their phone number as well as email addresses, the household address or the record that they're connected with, any activity that they have on the website. He has no activity at this point, but Dave, if he was a member of the church, could sign in and he could edit his profile by clicking on that option here on the far right. He'd be able then to have access to first name, middle name, anything that he would want to put in there. He'd have access to creating email addresses, whether it be personal, work, or home. And then he, as a signed-in member, could also choose whether his information is listed or not. So this listed and checkbox will override what might be set up on the user's page itself. That way, the member themselves has access to change whether their information is listed or unlisted on that member directory. Same way with phone numbers. You got the ability to pick work, cell, or home from these drop-down boxes, put in the phone number, choose whether they're listed or not, or using the delete button, the circle with the minus. We could delete one that's blank as well as this one. And then update the profile. We would see also other options like any groups that Dave Abbott is a part of. And we'll be talking about that in a bit, as well as any recent activity, which already we've seen no activity. So I do want to point out that, and mention just again, that the user themselves, the member in your church, can choose whether they're going to be listed or unlisted in the member directory. All right, that's enough about users. Let's go ahead then and go to our next topic of group pages. Since we got started a little bit late, I'm going to continue going into groups here for another 10 minutes or so, and then we'll take our intermission. All right, group pages. If we go to pages on the navigation bar, we'll see, let me go back to our webinar example of a church website. All right, so Jordan already covered with you in earlier webinars about setting up your page navigation here. Excuse me, your active menu items here on the left, as well as available menu items here on the right. What I want to do today is create a groups page. So to add a page to our website, I click on the add page icon here in the upper right, and the groups page option here with multiple people pictured in the little icon of the page. I click on that, make sure that it says groups here on the right, and we create the page. And let's say that in this church we have a men's ministry, and we want to create a groups page for that men's ministry. I'll go ahead and click Save Changes. And so that's created the men's ministry group page as an available menu item. Now a groups page, just to explain it better, is a way of having, in a way, a micro website on your global church website. So it's a good fit for different groups in your church. You might have maybe an altar guild who wants a groups page, a board of elders, a choir. That's already one of the groups that have been used on this demo site before. Maybe a church council. We're using men's ministry today. Women's ministry might be one. Young adults ministry. Those can all be options for groups pages. And the neat thing about groups pages is each groups page can have, in a way, a group leader. So let's just use youth as an example. The youth group page, you could give the youth leader the permission to be the group leader of that group's page. They have then the ability to edit just their group's page the way they want it for their area of the ministry. And even giving that youth leader permission to do that, they don't have access to all of this that we're doing here as an administrator. They just have the ability to change their area, their group ministry in the church. And so that is something that you can consider for those leaders of certain groups that want to be able to be responsible for the content on their pages. So let me give you an example of that. Let's go to the men's ministry page. I'll click on the little link here so we can begin building that page. And this is what you are presented with initially. You've got the men's ministry page the way that I had inputted. Then what you'll see here on the right is the navigation for this groups page. You'll notice that it's not here included on the horizontal navigation, the main navigation of the website, but it's navigation here on the right. So we see that right now we're on the home page, in a sense, of this men's ministry group page. We have access to the pages of this website just by clicking the Edit Page tab like we saw on the main website. We've got the ability to change the status from draft to publish once it's ready to be published. We've got the ability to change the URL, which is what would show up here at the top in the URL field. We've got the ability to change the page title instead of something like home, and then add some meta description as well. And then once any changes have been made there, especially if you publish it, then you would click the Save Draft button here at the bottom. Here in the main body of the page, we've got the same plus signs here to add more columns of windows as we saw in the previous webinars. You could, let's see, let's go ahead and make this a 4-column page. Maybe in the men's ministry, you might want to have on the top of every page a picture. So we click the pencil icon, click that for editing, and let's see, we may want to drop a image here. let's see, let's go ahead and put an image for the men's homepage. All right, so there's our men's ministry homepage in a sense. Other navigation options are the discussion. I'll show that in a minute. Events, each group's page has an events calendar. We also can show the members of this group. And this is where I want to start, editing this group. So this will help us just edit different parts of this group page. All right, so here in editing this group, once again, we see the title, Men's Ministry, where men gather to grow in their knowledge of the Lord. We can add a description of the group. And then underneath this, you'll see there is a pages section. And this is where we can broaden out and add additional pages to our website. We have the ability to add 3 additional navigation pages to our navigation bar here on the right. We didn't want it to be unlimited to where the navigation would be longer than the page itself. So we put a limit of 3 pages. So let me demonstrate that. We'll go ahead and add a outreach page. And it then lists it here in the box. I'll go ahead and add a photos page for the men's ministry. And we'll add a spiritual growth page. Now you can continue to add other pages. You just have a limit of adding 3 pages to the navigation on the left. Right now they're all in draft mode, and to update, what I want to do here is update this men's ministry with these 3 pages that I have added. Just please note here on the navigation so we can see the change. We basically got men's ministry, discussion, events, members, edit this group, and membership settings. I'm going to go ahead, scroll down to the bottom and update this group. Go back into edit. Got to get my check marks in there. Now let me go ahead and update the group. All right, so now you'll notice here when we're on the men's ministry landing page, we now have an additional 3 pages of navigation here on the right: outreach, photos, and spiritual growth. This gives us then the navigation within the website or within this microsite for men's ministry. I could click on outreach, and let's go ahead then and add just a heading here so that we know it's the outreach page. You might want to change this to a heading style. Save the draft. We can then go to photos. Go to spiritual growth as well. Go ahead and save the draft. Oop. So now we've got our 3 men's ministry outreach, spiritual growth, photos, and we can build each one of these individual pages within the members or within the men's ministry group page as well. We can add other photos in here in multiple columns. You want to build your pages in a modular way so that you can easily then delete any of these cells that you no longer need, and everything will just adjust and then fit accordingly. All right, so that's a way then of expanding our groups page here. Let's talk about some of these other options then. Let's finish off editing this group. I'm sorry. All right, so we've added these 3 additional pages and put a title on them. When we come to the section underneath, this actually is giving us the ability to set the permissions of each of these pages. And so we can think of this as the home page of the men's ministry. We might want that to be visible by everyone in the general public. But the discussions page, which I'll show you here in a minute, maybe we just wanted the group members, the men's ministry who have access to this groups page, to be able to make use of the discussion page. We also may want the events calendar. Maybe that one would be seen by everyone. The outreach itself, photos, and spiritual growth, those 3 pages I created, maybe we just want that for the group members of the men's ministry as well. And then for the ability to see who the members in the group are, maybe that would just be for group leaders. So we've changed those permissions of each of the individual pages. Underneath that, then who can join this group, we have the ability to select whether it's anyone who is logged into this site or only people that you invite. So for something like the men's group, you would probably set it to only people I invite, and then the group leader for the men's ministry could then invite particular men who fit in that age group for that particular ministry. We can update the group, and now this page has been updated. So once again, we're here on the main homepage or landing page of men's ministry. Let's talk about discussions. The discussion page, when we click on that option, this is where the men who are taking part of this ministry and who have access to this group page can go ahead and add discussion topics. So you have a choice of 3 different options here, whether it's a discussion, a prayer request, or an announcement. We'll go ahead and just first create a discussion. Let's see, what could we do? We can post that. Let me go ahead and refresh the page. See, things seem to be moving slow. There we go. So there's a posting of a discussion question. What should we do at our next meeting? Someone else who is signed in from the men's group could reply to that and post a comment, and then that would be indented in from that discussion. We could also then, any user signed in could put in a prayer request. So you would click on the option here for prayer request and post that as well. And you'll see that then that post is here at the top as a most recent post, but it is given a purple tag for prayer request. Then let me give you also an example of an announcement. And so in this discussions page, you can have a number of different discussions going on. They'll be tagged with a different color tag. People can reply to those. You could come in here if you are the creator of a comment and you could delete it. We can delete this church picnic announcement. We can edit it, click on the edit button and add to that. Go ahead and just delete the comment and it would delete it from the page. And that's how then the men's ministry can just interact and communicate with each other. Let's go ahead at this point before I move on and take a quick 5-minute break. I'll go ahead and set the timer here. And we'll be back in 5 minutes. All right, thank you. We're back. Let's go ahead and then pick up in our webinar where we left off talking about discussions, the ability to add discussion, prayer requests, announcements on the discussions page. You'll also see here on the left side in the men's ministry group page that you do have the 3 most recent discussions that were given here. So then if men would happen to log in to their to the website, and if they have access to the men's ministry page, they would see some of the more recent discussion questions or statements that have been given. Let's jump back down then to events, and this is our events calendar then for the men's ministry. We can look at this as a month as well as a week view. Let's go back here to this month view. We're here on the 24th, and let's say that we want to add a new event for the men's ministry. I would click on the new event link here in the lower left corner. And let's say that we're going to have a men's breakfast, and we'll have this in the church basement. And it is going to be on the, well, let's see, let's start this June 12th. We'll go back and backdate it a little bit at, I don't know, what's a good start time? 7 maybe a.m. And we'll go through, we'll say it's an hour and a half through 8:30. And we'll say it's not an all-day event, so then we're able to give these times. But let's say that this does repeat because we want to do it the second Saturday of every month. So once we check the box for this event repeats, we then have an option to repeat this every single week. In this case, that's not what we want, but let me demonstrate or show the options here. We could have this repeat on every single week, every other week, 3rd week, 4th week, 5th week, 6th week. The 6th is there because you can also choose month instead. So we'd have it repeats every single month, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, or even every single year, etc. In this case, since I want to set this up on a monthly schedule, I'm going to select every single month. Then that gives us a secondary option here of being able to choose the second, and we'll say the second Saturday. That way I can either, pick a particular day of the month, and this would then give us a scrolling list through the 30th, 31st, depending on the month. If you don't, if you want to just do it the last day of every month, use the option for last. But this would, you'd be able to pick a day in the month. But in this case, I want to use this option to pick actually the day in the month on a week type of format. So the second Saturday of every month, schedule starts, let's say June 12th, and it doesn't end. If I wanted to end it after 6 weeks, I could put a check mark here in the box, click in the date field, and plot that out for 6 weeks later. But I just want this men's breakfast to happen the second Saturday of every month. We can include a description. It then gets into invitations. So if I want to invite people in this to this event, I can check the box. Right now, we just have Jordan set up as the user, although I do need to add some other members, so I'll show that here in just a minute. You can invite people, and then you can also send out reminders. So we might want to send out reminders 1 hour before, maybe 1 day before, as well as 1 week before. And we can create this event. And now you can see that it shows up on our men's ministry event calendar on the second Saturday of every month. We can move through July, through August, showing up on the 14th. It's a way to schedule an event to happen every single month. We can add other events. Just click on the new event tag or link there and create additional events to put on the men's ministry calendar. Very useful tool. All right, so then let's go back to our men's ministry page here. We talked about the events calendar. We already talked about the 3 pages that we added and the ability to add content to that. Let's talk about the members. So dropping here to members, what you'll then have, since I'm signed in as the administrator Jordan, it then automatically creates him to be the group leader, but I can add members to this group. Right now, Rod and myself are the only other people in this users list here for this church, so there's not many to pick from, but I'll go ahead and choose myself, and I can add this member, and it makes me part of the men's group. Now you'll see that Jordan has a designation here of group leader, and I am just a member of the men's group or the men's ministry, and we can also do that for Rod as well. Might as well add him, and it adds Rod here at the top. So you can also invite people in your church. So if you had more of your membership under the users section in Unite, we would be able to click on invite member, and a drop-down list would appear of additional people that you could invite. If you set it up for people could request to be part of this group, let's see, that was under edit this group. Let's go down to the bottom here. Anyone who is logged into this site, and we updated the group to allow people to request to be part of the group. Then when we come here to members, all right, everyone in this case is a member of this group since we just have the 3 of us in the user setting, but it would give the option then to answer requests and being able to add those people to the men's group as well. Here in the member listing, I can also change the leadership position of this. So let's say Jordan was no longer going to be the group leader of the men's group and he was going to make me a group leader. I can click on my name and change role, and I can, Jordan, let's say I'm signed in as Jordan, he can promote me to the group leader, then he can check his name and change role and demote him just to a member of the group. And now that gives me group leader access, which then allows me to make any changes to some of the editing of this group page. I would then have the ability to change any of these settings, any of the permissions. This is all what the group leader has access to. Just the regular users or the regular men that are part of the men's ministry would not have access to this edit this group option, just the group leader or group leaders. You can have multiple people be group leaders as well. Let's go back to members here. And so we could continue just to keep Jordan as a group leader as well, and we would both have access to editing this group's page. This, when you go to the members option, you can also select the people that you want to email. Email selected or email all are options. And let's see, the very last thing I want to go through is the membership settings. So each man in your church who's part of the men's ministry will have this membership settings option when they've navigate to this groups page. And here is where they, as a signed-in user, as a part of the men's ministry, can choose what kind of notifications they want to see. If it's send me email when a member of the group posts a comment in our discussions, that way they get an email for every discussion point that's entered in there, whether it's an announcement, a prayer request, or just a discussion, submitting an option there for discussion. This one here, send me email only when a leader makes an announcement. So that way the people set up as group leaders, in this case, Jordan or myself, if we would send out an email, then they would just get the notification of those put out by the group leaders. And then the third and last option here under membership settings that they have is to choose don't send me any email notifications to this group. So they don't want to see any of those. They just want to be able to view it when they sign into the website. They don't want any notifications. So that's an option here as well. And then at the very bottom, the big red button, the individual person in this men's ministry can choose to leave the group totally. If they just don't want to be part of the men's ministry or part of whatever group page that you have, they can choose to leave the group. That puts the control into their hands. All right, so main thing I want to point out in this area is, let's see, is that for these group pages, you can set up the individual permissions on each of the pages, whether it's going to be public facing or just facing to the group members. It could be, we didn't even use this column here, that would be open to Unite users, meaning members of your church who sign in. They would maybe be able to see a page or two if you'd want to make that available to them. Other than that, it would just be to the members of this men's ministry or possibly just to the group leaders themselves. The discussions and events pages do have the ability to just not even use them, hide them, so no one could see those if you wanted to remove them from the navigation here, events and discussions. So keep that in mind. And I too wanted to mention that in the members section as well, let's go back to, let's see, edit this group. I'm going to go ahead and change back to everyone, only people I've invited. Let me go ahead and remove Rod here temporarily. Refresh the page. There we go. All right, so I did want to point out that to be a part of this group here, that in order to invite a member, they would need to be set up, have their account set up, and have a legitimate email address. Because in order to be a part of a group on your church website and be able to see member, in a way, member-only information, you do have to have that user login set up and be an active member on the church website with login credentials. So I did want to note that as well. All right, let's go ahead then and talk about calendars. We already talked about calendars from the standpoint of a groups page. Let's go ahead to our global calendars here. This is a way of communicating to your church. What we see here in this calendars page, and let me increase magnification a little bit here, is a group of calendars. A lot of these have a padlock. These are calendars that appear in our Church 360 members product, and so if you have that product, it can and has the ability to show those calendars as well. But they have a padlock here, meaning that they are required to be here. You cannot delete them. But any of the other calendars that you create, we could create a calendar here called the Bible study calendar, possibly. All right, that's probably used already. Let's go ahead and create a gymnasium calendar. Maybe all right, it did, actually it did create both of those. I'm not sure what the error notification is. I'll take a look into that after the webinar. But These two calendars have been created, the gymnasium and Bible study. When you initially create a calendar, you'll see that it's visible to no one. But if you click on the record of this calendar here for Bible study, I've clicked on it. I can then choose whether it's visible to, continues to be visible to nobody, or maybe just users, and that means members of your church who are signed in with their login credentials, or everyone. That means the general public. It's public-facing calendar, and everyone could see your Bible study calendar then as well if they choose to. We'll go ahead and keep this just to users, and we'll save that. So now you see that it's visible to users here on the far right. We can go ahead and also change the color, and so any events that are put on the Bible study calendar would have like a blue background to them. Maybe any of the events put on the gymnasium calendar, let's make that orange. And we can change any of these baptism calendars. We can make that blue as well. Let's change this color there. Birthdays can be red. And then that way your general calendar that displays, if you have them visible to either users of your church website or the general public, they would see those events on those calendars in the color that you've specified. You'll also notice that the men's ministry group page that we created, since there is an event calendar there, and we made it public facing, that does show up here as well. Clicking on this, you would not be able to change the view since this group calendar is controlled by the group leader of that group. If you remember, under the events calendar for men's ministry, we did make that public facing. And so right now it just says it's disabled from being able to be maintained, but it should show up in our public calendar. So that's how you create additional calendars. You can also include events from a Google Calendar. So if you check that box, then you'll be asked to sign into your Google account and the Google Calendar that you use, and then you'd be able to set up that interface as well. So that's an option here at the bottom. Let's go ahead now that we've talked about maintaining the calendar list and making them available, the visibility available to certain areas, either everyone or users or no one at all. We'll go ahead and close the calendar settings page, and let's then drop down here to our Connect tab where the calendar is located. So calendars, this is our calendar. The calendars drop down will have the calendars that we've made available to be seen by everyone. So we made the Bible study available to users of the church website. The men's ministry calendar, we made that available to the general public. And some of these other calendars also have been available to everyone who visits the website as well. And so depending on if you're signed in or if you're signed out, let's say, for example, right now we've got a list of 3 calendars. If we were to sign out of the website and then go, and now we're just looking at the website as someone in the general public, and we go to the calendars page, what we'll see here is only 5 calendars. You'll notice that the Bible study calendar isn't set up here as an option for the general public because that calendar was limited to only people signed in from your church membership. So it doesn't even appear here as an option then for the general public. Let me go ahead and sign back in as administrator. So once again, signed in here as administrator, we now have the Bible study. And then that way, anybody from your church who's signed in would be able to see that calendar as well. So the calendar here for in a way, the global website can be used in the same way and events added as we did in the groups page. The link for this is up here in the upper right corner, new event. We click on that and we can then create a new event here. We'll just call it Fellowship, caps lock, Fellowship Dinner. we need to add the event to one of the calendars. We'll create or we'll link it to the fellowship calendar. We'll just once again say church basement. And we'll do that. Let's do it on the 1st of July at 5:30 p.m. through 7:30. This is just a one-time event. It's not all day. It's not going to repeat. I won't put any description at the moment. Let's say the fellowship dinner, we do want to invite people in the church to come, so we can check the box. And now you'll see that we have the ability to invite those people who have been set up under the users dropdown. So we could invite myself and Jordan and Rod and Taylor. We can select all down here, select none. I can invite myself. We'll go ahead and send reminders 1 hour before the event happens, 1 day before, as well as 1 week before. I'll create the event. And so here we have the specifics about the fellowship dinner. A person, a member of the church who is signed in could say, I'm going, and click on that. And then they remind me 1 hour before. They can change that if they'd like. These are the options that we put in initially for the event itself, and so we can just cancel that and keep that same setup. But the user could change that if they want to be notified at a different time. You can add it, click the link to add it to my calendar, and we can also add a comment. If we would like, and post that on the event itself. All right, so we can also have the option here to edit this event, which will give us those same initial fields that we saw, and any updates we make, update the event, or we can delete the event or copy it even if we want to use it at a later point in time, since this was a single date event, and use it again later on. You can go to the recent comments where I added the comment looking forward to it, and see what other people might have put in there too from the church membership. Then we'd also see the church or the participants here. And if you remember, I clicked on the I'm going because I'm logged in, and since I'm logged in as Jordan, it put me under yes, and then there's 00, no response yet, or Tim. So that's a way that you can then create a calendar, as well as creating events on the calendar. Let's go ahead and go back to our calendar view. And you'll see here, if we add the fellowship calendar to this list, that the fellowship dinner that we just created here on Thursday, July 1st at 5:30 is shown on the calendar. We can even click on that to go ahead and then see that same page we saw a moment ago for the event. All right, very good. Let's go ahead then and keep moving along. We're running a little bit behind because of the late start. Again, I apologize for the technical difficulties we had. Let's talk quickly about, let's go back to users and mailing lists, communication. So mailing lists, you're given one by default here of everyone. That is one that can be deleted, evidently, but you would want to have that available just in case you need to get a broadcast email sent out. I've just added it again. Once you have added the email list, then just click on that record again, and you can then choose everyone here to be a part of that mailing list. And let's say then that we also want one just for the men's ministry. Create that mailing list, and you'll notice that when I click on that row, I then have the ability to add the men's ministry group, the group page here. So we can click on that and save that change. Let me go back here to everyone here and make a change here as well. Let's see, the everyone option is gone, so all right. You're also able to, if you noticed here, when I clicked in this area, let's go ahead and just remove everyone again. This is going to show those people who have set up a user login, as well as any groups, the choir group, the men's ministry group. And now because I created this other mailing list of men's ministry, I can also add multiple mailing lists to a global mailing list. So we could choose that option, and it would be the men's ministry mailing list, and we could have a women's ministry mailing list and a youth ministry mailing list, and put those 3 different groups all here for everyone. It's something like that, or all ministries possibly instead of everyone. Let's see. Once you have your mailing lists created, you could then check the mailing list you want to email out with, and then choose email, and then be able to send out a communication email to the men's ministry group of participants. You can choose to delete any of these mailing lists at any point in time with the circle minus here on the far right. And also let's talk about the communications here. Communication, there we go, is going to show people who are set up if they're part of any group. In this case, I'm part of the men's ministry. Jordan is part of men's ministry as well as choir. Shows the email addresses, so we could check the box and use the action buttons here at the bottom to send an email or to send a text. We'll talk about texting in just a moment. But this is just a way of, under users still, we've got our list of users and then ways of communicating them through creating mailing lists, as well as, here's our everyone back again, so that's good. Our everyone mailing list as well as the men's ministry, and then ways of communicating with those lists or those users by email or texting. I do want to mention that when you do send out an email to your church membership, let's say we did send one out to the men's ministry group, and it's a group of, let's say, 25 people, and you email them. Each individual person in that mailing list will only see their email address in the email. You will not see the other 24 people's email address. We use the blind carbon copy feature when you're emailing out, so it's just going to say something to the point of an undisclosed a number of recipients on there, and it will just be addressed to you, and you won't see anyone else. So I did want to point that out too, that we do protect your email addresses from being seen by others. Let's talk about the activity tab. The activity tab will show, first of all, an event log just of different events that are different changes that have been made to your website, who the user was. In this case, we're signed in as CTS, the record, who the change was made on. We changed my name from Tim to Timothy, if you remember earlier on in the webinar. All of these changes are logged in here under the event log: a day, a time, the user who made the change, the record they were on to make the change, as well as the change that they were made. So those will be shown there. The email log, this will show any emails that have gone out of your system. A better representation of that, let me go to this other option or this other website and go to the email log here real quick. Magnify that. So this shows a number of emails that have gone out of our other demo account. It will give you the date, who it was from, the subject of the email, who it went to. If it was a mailing list, it would say, I happen to name this mailing list Tim's List, and it would then show you through the drop-down arrow here which ones were delivered in that mailing list. If there were 25 that went out, which ones were delivered, which ones failed to deliver. That's what the status column shows. And so this is just a way to follow up to see the log on the emails that have gone out. Let's also talk here about the texting opt-in feature here under activity. Let's first go to settings. Under settings, there is an option here on the far left for texting, and this is where you would first set up your texting communication in Church 360 Unite. You would put a box here, a check mark in the box that it's enabled, and then you can personalize and opt in your email message to your members if they want to join in to the texting feature. So we just have a box here that we can customize. Hello, please join our text group. We can also put any questions, call the church office at 111-222-3456. Whatever the phone number might be. We can save changes. All right, then after that, we would go to our activity. Now let's see. Let's first go to users here. And let's use myself as an example. Well, let's see. Let me go back to our other website here real quick. I'm back on our other website. Sorry. I need to go to settings, texting, enable that feature. That's the problem with using multiple sites at times. We'll just leave it at that. We'll save these options here. So we've enabled texting. We've added a custom paragraph to our texting opt-in message that goes out. We can now come here to users, and let's say that we want to invite some users. Now, I'll just click my name today, but you could click any number of people that you would like to invite to receive texts. With this option checked, I'll go ahead to the action button at the bottom and invite to receive texts. So this will send me an email. Tim Burke will be invited to receive text messages from the church. We'll send the invitation. It uses the email address that we set up for the login. And I should be receiving then an email here shortly. All right. It hasn't come through yet. All right, so we'll continue to talk about it rather than waste some time. I would get an email that basically tells me about the church texting option, and it would then give me a button to sign up for that texting option, and it would give me then an option to enter in the cell phone number that I want to use. All right, very good. Now it just came through for me. Thank you. Let's go ahead and bring that email over. All right, so this is the email that I received. Let's say I was a church member, and again, we were signed in as Jordan, and so it's just you're invited to be part of texting. In order to do this, you must confirm that you would like to opt in to these text messages, and you would click the button here to sign me up. Now you will notice here underneath the sign up button is that custom paragraph that we used to just customize the message a little bit. Join us in our texting group. Any questions, call the church office. That's the part that you can customize and add your own information, this third paragraph in a way, but all of this is just stock information that's sent along with that invitation. Next, I would go ahead and click Sign Me Up. And then what we would see is this in our window, in our internet browser. Type your cell phone number to receive text messages from the church. So in this case, I'm going to use one of our demo phones here that we have. And I do want to opt in to text messages. So I click Opt In. And what this is saying is that we could not locate the cell phone number in your church database. In other words, it's not in the database of users yet at all. So it's asking me then to provide a name that then goes with the phone number. Now I'll click Opt In again. And it gives us the thank you. And now on my phone here, let me go ahead and I've got a message. That shows up in my text client here. And text yes to receive text messages from your church. Message frequency varies. Text and data rates may apply. Reply help with help for help, or stop to unsubscribe. That's what the text message reads. I'll go ahead and type in yes. So you'll see the little green bubble says yes, and under that it replies automatically, thank you, you have opted in to receive text messages from your church. So now with that having been done, let's go ahead to our activity tab. Let me just refresh the page. And what we should see here is the name as well as the phone number. Let's see, all of that was taken care of. We invited. Opt-in. All right, here we should be seeing in a moment that my name up here under the name column along with the phone number that we used. Since it was confirmed on the phone, And then we'd have the ability to match that with a person in our database. In this case, we've got one already set up for one of our other technicians, and so we could unlink him, or which would leave no name there, or we can click on it and link him in here with the drop-down list of available people. You know what? I'm thinking here that I'm on the wrong website. So let me go ahead and get back to our webinar. There we go. I'm so sorry. So here on the texting opt-in page of activity is now my name here with the phone number that I used and the ability to link me with one of the records in our database. So now that I've clicked link, I've got my name matched up. Now when I go to users and communication, I can click my name, send a text out. When you send a text out, it can either be one of 4 different options: an announcement, an invitation, a reminder, or a prayer request. In this case, we'll go ahead and choose announcement, and we'll just say, welcome to texting, Tim. Send the text. You may not be able to see it on this phone, but I'll try to hold it still. It does say at the very bottom, welcome to texting, Tim. And that church text that I just sent out did come in on the phone. So that's how the texting option works. Other than that, I believe that's all of the content that we needed to cover today. Let's go ahead and jump into our quiz. All right, today's quiz. We've got 5 questions here that I'd just like to see if you caught that data during the webinar, that information as I covered it, just to get a good idea whether it was communicated well. So today's first question of the survey is a true or false question. Changing the personal email address of a person in Church 360 members or Shepherd staff will change their email address on the user's screen of Church 360 Unite, even after they've created their login. I know that's a lot of information here. What this is basically saying is that once you've created a user login, it says even after they've created their login, will a change to either Church 360 members or Shepherd staff, will that change the email address on the user's screen? Let me go ahead and launch that polling question here. And if you don't mind, go ahead and click on the screen whether you think this is true or false. Again, I don't know who votes true, who votes false, so don't worry about it. If you get it wrong, just click on one of those options there. Changing the personal email address of a person in Church 360 members or Shepherd staff will change their email address on the user screen of Church 360 Unite, even after they've created their login. All right, just give a little bit more time. Make that last click. Give it your gut feeling. All right, very good. Let's go ahead and close. So the results are a little bit more, 64% on false and 36% true. The answer to the question then, we had more false again, is false. So we've got about 2/3 of you answering correctly. Once a user has established their login, the only thing that can change the email on the user screen is that user logging in and updating their login email on their personal profile. And so once they've created the login, think of it as whatever email address that was used is in a way locked in to that login credential. And at that point in time, only the user themselves can change that email address. So if they change email providers from Gmail to Outlook or to Yahoo Mail, they would be the one that would have to change that email address in their user login. All right, very good. Let's go on to the next one, true or false. A user can list or unlist themselves from the online directory without an administrator making any changes. The user can list or unlist themselves. So they've signed in as a member of the church with their login. Can they list or unlist themselves from the online directory? I need just a few more to make up that last decision. Go with your gut again. All right, we've got about the same voting here. Let's go ahead and close. Share the results. So the majority of you answered true. There are some that answered false, and that's completely all right. Let's go ahead and find out what the answer is. The answer is true. 82% of you answered that way. If a user has a login to Church 360 Unite, they can go into their own profile and list or unlist themselves from the member directory. That way the control of that personal information can be maintained or controlled by the member themselves, and that will override what the church staff may have originally set up that member directory record for that household or for those individuals. So that puts it into the individual member's hands. All right, very good. Let's go on with the next question. True or false? Each page within a group page can be adjusted so either everyone, users, group members, or group leaders can see the page. So can each page in a groups page have, in a way, its own permissions? The votes are flying in. Each page within a group can be adjusted so either everyone, users, group members, or group leaders can see the page. We need just a few more to make your last decision. Plug it in there. All right, very good. We'll share that. So 100% of you answered true. Let's go ahead and come back to the PowerPoint. And the answer is true. Every page within a group can have its visibility adjusted to control who can see a page. You can make a page visible to anyone who would visit your website, all the way up to even being able to make it so no one can see a particular page, like the discussions in the events page had a no one option. Okay, let's go on to the next question. True or false? When creating an event, you can only invite users who have set up their logins to that event. When creating an event, you can only invite users who have set up their logins to that event. All right, any other last votes here? Go with your gut. All right, very good. Looks like we have an 80-20 split again, and more leaning towards the false side. 80% say false. The answer is false. Any person who has an email address listed on your user screen can be invited to an event that you create. This will let you reach out to people who may not have set up their 360 Unite login yet. So that way you can reach a few more people, but you would need to be on your user screen. whether they've finished the login process or not, you'd be able to reach out to them. All right, and then the next question, true or false? The last question here, when sending out mass emails from Church 360 Unite, the person who receives the email will only see that it came to them. Is that true or false? When sending out a mass email, the person who receives the email will only see that it came to them. Okay, another moment here. Excellent. All right, very good. And the results are 100% true on that one. I think we got that communicated well. So the answer is true. Mass emails sent from Church 360 Unite use a blind carbon copy option or feature, which means that the recipients of the email will only see that the message came to them and not any other email addresses. That way you protect the email addresses of all your members. All right, very good. All right, now is the point where we reach just to the Q&A session. I'll go ahead and answer those questions. If you have any, I'll go ahead and type it into the questions window or the questions section on your control panel. In the meantime, I do want to thank you for attending today's Unite webinar. If you attended live, thank you so much for just sitting through and having patience through the time that we were experiencing the technical difficulties in the beginning. I apologize for that again. It's always a rough start when you start with technical problems, but we got through it and started 20 minutes late. But I appreciate you just hanging in there with me. For those of you who are watching live, or watching the recording, I should say, you won't be able to answer or send in and submit questions, but you could use the information on the screen right now to email us at a later date. The email at the bottom, support@cts.cph.org, is there, and you can email us with any of your questions or give us a call on the support line at 1-800-346-6120. All right, I'll take a look at some of the questions that are listed here. We had a lot of statements about not being able to hear in the beginning, so I'm sorry that we didn't get that taken care of. Let's see. All right, Michelle asked, does the person you want to add to users have to be listed in your Members 360, or can it be anyone with an email address? It can be anyone with an email address, Michelle. Let's go ahead and just review that. Once again, here under users, if you wanted to add anyone to this list, you just click add people. You type in their first name, their last name, and their email address, and then just click add. And so that will add a person outside of your church, or maybe someone who's a prospective possible member or someone who wants to visit, and allow them to access your church's website if you want to do that. So you can do that manually. All right, there's some more issues with sound. Let's see, can we put a form on one or more web pages to allow site visitors to add themselves? All right, really at this point in time, members can't add themselves. It is something that is limited just to church administrators. So you would need to work through the church to get yourself added and not be able to use a form. All right, that's a very good, some feedback there though, George. Thanks for asking the question. Let's see, Michelle asks, can I edit the user's name if, for example, a preschool teacher changes but has a generic email? that she inherited from the last teacher. Certainly, if you had, let's say this Tim email address just said something like, I don't know, Men's a group leader or something, you could certainly click the pencil icon here and change the name to John Doe. Whoop. There we go. And then that would show that person's name, John Doe, but still be connected to that email address, that inherited email address that is there at the church. So yes, that is a possibility. Thanks, Michelle. All right, and then Michelle came back and asked, let's see, now there we go. Whoops. All right, Michelle asked, is for the recording, could we put minute marks that look for specific topics, like go to such and such a time in the recording for group pages and other times? We appreciate that as a suggestion. We have talked about that in the past, and so I have seen it in some of the webinars where they've included that in the description. So we'll see what we can do. We don't currently have a process in place, though, for doing it, but we'll see what we can do about that, Michelle. Thanks for the question. All right, let's see here. Whoops. All right, George says, I'm wanting to use the website to collect people's information on those people who come to the site from a marketing program, register for a program, register to receive a gift, RSVP for first-time visitor. Yeah, George has already left. I know that you are able to link your Unite website. Let me, for some reason my mouse is not working here. Everything's at a standstill. Under settings, I don't know if you can see it on the screen. If you go to settings, there is an interface with Google Analytics, and you would be able to get some analytical data about those who visit your website and see who frequents the pages and things like that. I don't think it necessarily gets down to who it is, because it would just be IP addresses and things. I'm not as familiar with Google Analytics, but you would be able to use that to get some information, but you wouldn't be able to follow up with anybody, I don't believe. All right, let's take a look at the next question. All right, Janet asks, when it comes to user setup, I need to make myself an administrator and remove the old secretary. What's the best way to do that? All right, depending on how many administrators you have there, Janet, in your subscription, if you're limited just to one or two, I'd have to look into your website a little further. So that might be a question that you would call into the tech support team. I might even be the one who takes your call, but we could look into that for you afterwards and see how we can get that migrated over to you from the last secretary and be able to recommend the best way to do that. Yeah, it looks like, and you also mentioned that you log in as her at the moment, and so yeah, that's not the best idea because any changes that you make in the event log will be put under the old secretary's name and not yours. So it would be a good idea to get that changed over. All right, let's see. Let's go on to the next question. Scott asks if there are any options to indicate an open rate for emails that are sent out or any way to tell if an email was opened. No, there's not. There is the ability under the activity, and I can't, I'm locked up here on my display. I'm sorry I can't show it, but under the activity tab, it would show those emails that were delivered, but it does not show the emails that were opened. That would be a nice feature. I'll include that feedback if that's something that could somehow be added by the programming team. I don't know, but that would be down the road some ways. But thanks for asking that question, Scott. That's a good piece of feedback to have. Chris asks, do texts also come through without other names and phone numbers? Yes, they do. When it comes through, a text comes through, let's see, I think there's a number that's given to the text. Let's see if I can find that here. Yeah, if you can see this in the screen, a text that comes through, it's actually a number. There it is, 69089. And so you're not going to see anything but that number, and that means it's a number that, or the text came through from your church. All right, very good, Janet. Yeah, Janet says that she'll call our support team in regards to changing that permissions. All right, so that's pretty much it for the questions today. I once again just want to thank you for attending today's webinar, and appreciate your time. And we look forward then to helping you either on our support line or through email. Just reach out to us and we'll be glad to assist. Thank you and have a great day.